This is JC Dawkins with the April 2020 edition of the Monthly Market Report. Gee, what a month it's been so far. At the beginning of March, we were talking about having a sensational year as we had more sold houses in January and February in this country than any other January and February in over a decade. The home buying market in the US and in Connecticut was poised for strong spring sales, but the COVID-19 pandemic now casts uncertainty for 2020. In this monthly market report, we will focus on answering the top 5 questions about the real estate market that we hear most often. Those questions are: when is the economy going to recover? Are we going into a recession? Is this going to be like 2008? And what about all those job losses? And finally, what should I do right now? So let's start with: when is the economy going to recover? One analogy to explain what's happened to our economy is that we are in a snowstorm right now. There's 6 feet of snow on the ground and it's still snowing. So we're all inside, unable to go about our regular lives. Eventually the snow will stop and then it will melt and we will return to our activities. There may be some adjustments to the way we used to do things, but at least we'll be active again. Another analogy for what's happening to the economy is that someone hit the pause button, like when you're watching a movie on DVR. As soon as it's safe to hit the play button, we'll all actually eventually get back to work. In the beginning of this month, there were forecasts from Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and also Morgan Stanley. They were all saying the same thing. We're in for a wild ride in the second quarter, but we're also in for a wild ride up through the rest of the year. That's what this graph is saying. This is what is called a V-shaped recovery. Strong down and then a strong up. However, as April progressed, a majority of economists believe we will see a U-shaped economic recovery in which the economy will stabilize a while before climbing up to previous levels. So are we going into a recession? It is important to note that a recession does not equal a housing crisis. With the exception of 2 recessions, the Great Recession from 2007 to 2009 and the Gulf War recession from 1990 to 1991, no other recessions have impacted the U.S. housing market, according to Freddie Mac Home Price Index data collected from 1975 to 2018. Recessions don't normally impact the housing market. In 2008, because the housing market and the mortgage market meltdown had a major impact on the economy, home prices fell 19.7%. So what we're experiencing currently is not like 2008. 2008 was like a tornado. It came rushing through. It destroyed all the buildings and leveled everything right to the foundation. When that tornado passed through, we had to rebuild all those buildings, and it took years after 2008 to rebuild the housing market and rebuild the mortgage market. Home price appreciation during the 6 years leading up to the housing crash was considerably higher than the home price appreciation during the last 6 years. While prices have been rising, we don't have runaway appreciation that we experienced during the housing crash. Also, now, when we look at mortgage credit availability, which was another driving force of the housing crash, we see that it's not as easy to get a loan as it was during the pre-crash, housing bubble. When we look at how consumers are using their equity before the housing crash and now, we see that consumers took much more cash out refinances then than now. Back then, people were using their homes almost like an ATM, taking equity out of their homes to buy things like vacations. Now we see that approximately 53.8% of the homes had at least 50% equity. In 2008, we had homes leveraged to the hilt. So, what about all those job losses? As of today, April 27, 2020, 26 million people have filed for unemployment due to this pandemic. This chart shows that projections from Goldman Sachs, which take into account that the unemployment rate will improve later this year to an average of about 15% for this year. The good news is that unemployment will continue to drop as we move forward into 2021 through 2023. This graph shows that going all the way back to 1989, there is no direct relationship between the unemployment rate and the number of homes sold. Well, what should I do right now? The real estate market is still very active in the US and especially here in Connecticut amid everything happening with COVID-19. Here in Connecticut, sales in the first quarter of 2020, all right, exceeded sales in the same time period of 2019. However, the other key statistics are lagging 2019, as you can see. However, homeownership is an important source of wealth creation, enabling current homeowners and succeeding generations to move up the economic ladder. The vast majority of every family's net worth is in their home. And when those homes get passed down, generation to generation, that helps future generations build more net worth, more family wealth. Now, if you have a home that you would like to refinance, please contact a mortgage expert. And if you are considering selling your home or buying a home, please contact a real estate agent like myself. In conclusion, in this month's report, we have answered the key questions people ask about the current real estate market. We have answered 1, when is the economy going to recover? 2, are we going into a recession? 3, is this going to be like 2008? 4, what about all those job losses? And 5, what should I do right now? Please let me know if you have any questions or concerns about any of this content, and please stay safe.